Get it? If you don't feel comfortable in the recording, please leave now. I think they said that during the KTI sessions. Does that look big enough on your screen, guys? When you see that, that's okay like that?
Yep.
Cool. I'm going to make it slightly tinier just because I want to see people. And it's hard to see everybody. I'd like to see people come in. Who's in the house? Courtney's here, and Meckley's here, and Diana's here.
Everybody's starting to come on. As you're starting to come on, if you want access to this Jamboard, we're going to be using it as our presentation. If you hover over the bottom of your Google Meet screen, you'll see Elementary Google Meet PD. If you click on that, you'll see that there is an attachment, and that is a Jamboard that we're going to be working with today. So go ahead and click on that. And then you should have I Spy on the first page.
And I'll start to see people populating the Jamboard. So Katie's in, and Courtney's in, and Diana's in. And we'll repeat those instructions in like 30 seconds as more people get in. And if you are in the Jamboard on the first slide, feel free to start completing these 4 tasks.
And if you're having any trouble, go ahead. Feel free to use the chat feature right now if there's anything we can help you with. But this is a great activity for kids. Just like if you're online, your kids are coming in at different times. So it's always good to give them some kind of task to focus on. So this is just an example of that, and to show how Jamboard, which we'll talk a lot about today, how it can be collaborative. So this is the collaborative piece of Jamboard. It doesn't always have to be collaborative. You'll know a Jamboard is collaborative if you see the tools on the side. If you got to view this and you didn't see the tools, you wouldn't be able to write all over it. So,
I'm going to undo that, I hope. Whoops, there it is.
Jamboard's very much in beta form, so when something is, it's a little tricky when something is deleted. It's not as easy to get it back, but there's actually some updates that are supposed to be coming this week.
All right, now I'm just going to kind of repeat what Shelly said for those that just are joining us. If you didn't get a chance to get into the Jamboard that you can see on my screen, in the bottom left-hand corner of your Google Meet, you should see it say Elementary Google Meet PD with a little paperclip icon. And if you click on that and go to attachments, you can access the Jamboard right here.
And feel free to go ahead, and this is your opportunity to play around with the tools as a student. So you see that there's a marker there with all different colors. You have an eraser, you have sticky notes, images. We'll go over all those things, but feel free to just play. This is your opportunity to play around with the different tools that Jamboard has to offer. Olsen, was that you?
That's all the enthusiasm I can muster on a Tuesday.
Hey, guys.
Yep.
I don't think the internet is up and running smoothly, if that's possible yet, because it took quite a matter of fact, I'm still spinning on the Jamboard.
Okay.
And also your voices are coming in and out,
Are they?
Yeah.
Is
that for everybody, or is that just Lit Itself?
I know the internet problem today was not only Lit Itself.
Okay.
If
can you guys answer in the chat, is this can you guys hear us, or is it just a particular school, or is it everybody that we're kind of in and out?
Can I get a thumbs up if you can hear us and see us relatively well?
Okay.
Okay. So looks like for the most part, Jeannie, I don't know if you want to attempt to relocate or possibly restart and see if that helps. I actually, when you first joined our meet, I had to restart and things look like they're running better for me now.
And know that we have a recording of a session similar to this
Mhm.
one. So if it's really bad and it's really glitchy, feel free. You don't have to, we can send that recording to you in lieu of this meeting. I mean, we could let the principals know. If you can't hear us, then there's no sense of, you can try a different location, maybe restart. Holy cow, is there a new update? There's a new update.
Yeah, we can talk about that. That's just
but yeah, we could provide that recording for you as well.
Okay.
It's not your fault that the internet's not working.
It's not doing a good job. Do you mean restart my whole computer?
It could help.
Okay, I'm gonna go do that.
Okay.
But I might be way behind everybody else.
Okay.
We'll definitely catch you up to if needed. Okay. So for everybody else in the meet right now, we're gonna move on a little bit here, just because in a nutshell, what we're doing for this PD session is an unbelievably condensed version of a PD session that we did with our secondary staff. And Shelley and I really wanted to at least provide an opportunity for everyone at the elementary to see some of these tools. But our PD for the secondary was definitely close to about 3 to 4 hours, and this is going to be about 30 minutes. So it's going to be a super condensed version. So we're just going to ask that you kind of hang with us. If you feel overwhelmed, if you feel like, man, they're covering a lot of stuff, keep in mind this is sort of like a little bit of a commercial for Jamboard and some of the Google Meet updates. And if you have any follow-up questions, you can certainly put in a tech request or email us, and we'll be happy to help you guys out. But really, we just want to preview a bunch of the things that we've been working on in Jamboard and how you can use it with your remote learners.
We can totally see in the future that this being like, we can team teach with you, we could do Google Meets with groups and focus just on content. So this is not your, we're here to support you along the way. This is not your only exposure to this. We're here, we'll help you individually. We're always here to support you. This is going to be fast, and it's going to be a lot of info, but you're not on your own on this. So please don't feel like you are.
So just because I want to make sure everybody's in here at this point, so this is just a reminder how to get to the Jamboard, because right now I see in the Jamboard I have 8 people and we have 20-ish in this meeting. So if you are in the Google Meet right now, if you look on my screen in the bottom left-hand corner, there is a little title there, Elementary Google Meet PD, with a paperclip. If you click on that and go to attachments, you can find the Elementary PD Jamboard content jam. All you have to do is click on that, and it will take you to this Jamboard that we're all looking at, and everybody has editing access. So that's kind of what that first page is that we were looking at, that has a couple of tasks for you to do, and then people playing the I Spy over here together. And again, as you see, you can see different little users and their icons right now going through the I Spy, and this is something your students could use. Just one example of a place where students can kind of work together on something together. So hopefully everyone's slowly getting in there. And if you're still having trouble getting in, if your internet's being goofy or something like that, you're welcome to watch along on my screen. I'll keep presenting as we go through the rest of the Jamboard content. Okay, so at this point, I just want to give everybody a quick tour of some of the Google Meet updates before we really dive into Jamboard. And the first thing that we are going to look at is the Activities tab, which if you see on my screen, it's that little triangle, square, and circle in the upper right-hand corner. And if I go to the Activities tab, I'm going to see 3 activities. I'm going to see breakout rooms, polls, and Q&A. We're going to cover all those briefly for you. The first one is pretty straightforward. It's just an active poll that you can put in your Google Meet for your students. As you can see, I already have one loaded up. And the cool thing about these polls is that you can create them ahead of time and save them. And then when you're ready, you can launch them. So right now I'm going to launch a poll. And I'm going to make sure everyone can see the results by turning on that little toggle. And you should see on your screens a little green circle that should pop up on that Activities tab, which is basically informing you that your teacher the moderator has released a poll. So go ahead right now, and you're going to kind of get a student view of what these polls look like. You can just select which Google Meet update you're most curious about. And again, for those that are popping in here, that is the Activities tab.
You should see a green dot, and then where it says polls, you also see another green dot, and this is where you get to go ahead and vote. Now, we all have enterprise accounts. What does that mean? That means we're paying for it. There's a lot of bells and whistles that we get with Google Enterprise that we wouldn't get last year. So we're paying for it this year. And we each have an account. Our students do not have accounts, so they don't have access. They have access to answer the questions and do the activities, but they can't be a moderator. Jonathan right now is a moderator because we created the Google Meet within his calendar. The rule right now with Google is the first one that hovers over that address is the one that's the moderator. That's not always a good thing if you're co-teaching with teachers and they have access and the teacher does not. Google is aware of this and they're working on, I mean, we just saw an update today on Jamboard. It's possible that even by, you know, the end of the day, they're working on having moderator features. So that's coming if it's, you know, not already here.
Definitely. So as you guys can see, the poll's updating live. At the end of this session, I'm actually going to get an email with all the poll results. So if I would give, you know, several polls during class, maybe I'd use them as exit tickets. Maybe they were just intro hook activities where I'm just seeing how kids are doing, things like that. I'm going to get all those results at the end of the class in an email in a spreadsheet. So that's basically polls. It's very simple to use. You hit create a poll and you pretty much just put in your question and your answers. The second one that we want to look at in the activities tab is going to be the Q&A. Now the Q&A is really similar to the chat feature. It's super easy to use. You basically go to Q&A and just hit turn on Q&A. And you should see a little tab show up on the bottom of your screen saying Q&A is now open. You can ask a question, or you can go to the upper right-hand corner and go back to that activities tab and just click on Q&A. At the bottom, you'll see an ask question button where you can ask any questions you want. And ultimately, the reason that we love Q&A so much is because as students ask questions, as you throw these out, if you give this as an option for your kids, they're going to be able to ask questions and then upvote each other's questions. So if they have a question in class and other students see it and say, oh yeah, I was wondering that too, they can start upvoting those questions. Now, today's going to be a perfect example of a really rushed PD session because we're definitely not going to get through everything we want to, and you're probably going to have some questions along the way. You might say, hey, can I do this with Jamboard? Can I do this? But we're going to be speeding along so much, we're probably not going to get to those questions. But the nice thing is at the end of Google Meet, I'm going to receive an email and it's going to have a really, really nice, and I'm just going to show you what it looks like here on my screen, a spreadsheet with all of the questions that were asked and all of the people that asked those questions, as well as all the upvotes that they received. So for example, when we did our secondary PD, Ashley asked the question, would anyone be interested in making an ELA folder or space for us to share the Jamboard templates and organizers we created? There were 6 people that upvoted that. So again, it's just a really great place to be able at the end of your meet to say, oh, wow, we never had a chance to cover that. Maybe I'm going to follow up with students in an email. Maybe I'll post that to my Google Classroom. Maybe at the next Google Meet, we're going to address all the questions that weren't able to be answered.
Another great feature that has also been added to Google Meet is attendance. At the end of every Google Meet, it's all packaged really nicely. So you get all your questions and answers, and you also get your attendance. It'll tell you who was in your meet for that meet, when they came in and when they left. So that's also a nice little bonus for if you're going virtual, it'll give you that information.
Cool. So let's get jamming with Jamboard. So Jamboard, again, for those that are not in yet, bottom left-hand corner, if you click on that and go to the attachments button, you can access the Jamboard right here. And I'm going to ask that everyone on their screens, although I'm presenting, if you want to just watch and follow along, you can. But you can be an active participant with some of these slides as well. So I'm going to let this take over some of my screen. And this is not like Nearpod or Pear Deck where I can force you to jump to the next slides. It's really important that you explain to your students, all right, everybody, we're on slide 2, if you were using it as a collaborative piece like we're going to be using it today. So I'm going to ask that everybody who's in the Jamboard right now, at the top of the Jamboard, if you click on the right arrow, you can move to slide 2. Which is going to look like this, 3 ways to use Jamboard. Now, as the moderator, as the teacher here, you still have some ability to be able to see if your students are on track, because if I click on this little arrow underneath slide 2 of 19, I can see that I've got 15 total viewers that followed my instructions and were able to get on slide 2. And I've got a couple people still hanging on slide 1 because they just haven't advanced yet. And that's okay. I'm not picking on you if you haven't advanced yet, but just so you can see there, Stephanie. You need no, sorry. So basically you just want to get over to slide number 2. That way you can follow along with us and play
Jonathan,
along
go back to that and click on those. Go back to those slides because we want to show them. This is also, if you click on those 3 dots, this is where you can duplicate. And this is where you can delete your slides. You can only have up to 20 slides right now, unless they've just added more, but that is your limit to a Jamboard. Before we move on to what a Jamboard is, I want to, Jonathan, can we spend a little bit of time at that bottom bar? We went to the top bar, but we forgot to talk about the hand raising feature. That's pretty new. Sure. And then show how you uploaded a Jamboard to your Google Meet. So
right. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
So raise your hand feature is pretty new. If you have had any live streaming or anything, you could hear it. The kids raise their hands. You can lower their hands. You can lower in bulk, I believe. There's a caption feature that you can turn on, and that works pretty well. And those 3 dots, you have that's where we changed our background. That's where you can now change your tile view for up to 49 people, I believe. And whiteboard, this is where you would open a jam. So if you want to do it separately from Google Meet, you can open your jam just by using the waffle. You have access to Jamboard that way. In Google Meet, you have 2 options. You can just start a Jamboard right from scratch and just have a whiteboard, or you can pull from your drive that you've created something in Jamboard using the Jamboard, from the waffle, and then you could upload it there. In this case today, of course, we created this ahead of time, but that's how you would access it. If the kids are already in the Google Meet, it will show up in the chat as a link, or it will also be in that paperclip. So definitely show the kids how to hover over and find it in the paperclip.
Cool. Good explanation. All right, so we're going to head back to the actual Jamboard that we're in. And if you are brand new to Jamboard, if you've never seen Jamboard before, actually, Shelly, I'm going to let you talk about this. Sorry.
Okay, so not to give the history of Jamboard, but Jamboard is relatively new. Out of all the Google tools, I think it's most like a Google slide, but it allows that collaborative piece that's essential, especially when you're online. There are 3 ways to use it. One is just as a whiteboard, just pulling it up and showing it so the kids can you can kind of, talk to the kids, work with it, but you're the only one that has access. The kids don't have access to it. So the kids don't have to have access to it. They can just use it to kind of follow along with you. So it could be a screen share if you wanted to model a task. And again, they wouldn't have any of those tools, but you always have those tools that you can work with. Let's show background again. We didn't show that, did we? So we talked about the tools a little bit, but we didn't go to set background. So go to set background. And here's also where if you were just using a whiteboard, you can use grid paper, you can use, dots, lined paper. So you can do a lot of this on the fly as well and just pull up a blank Jamboard and get started. They just added the feature that you can add an image, which is great because then it won't move around, kind of like that I Spy did. So they literally just added that today. Yep. We showed you an example of how you can collaborate and interact in one, sharing it through Google Meet. That's a way to do it. You want to make sure that anyone can edit so that they all have access. You can also use this as independent work. You can add the link in Seesaw. You can add the link in Google Classroom. And just like any Google tool, you can make a copy for each student. So if you were to use Google Classroom, you could put it in as an assignment and every kid has their own copy if you wanted it as independent work. K2, I'll be honest, we've been trying this and we've been trying this on an iPad. They have the Jamboard app on iPads if you wanted to do it separately. Us trying to do Google Meet and Jamboard at the same time, as of right now, to us, it felt really clunky. It was really hard on going through the Google Meet app. It wasn't even great going through Safari and Google Meet. So I would just probably, as a K-2 teacher, I would use that whiteboard feature the most before I try that collaborative piece. If some of you have tried it or want to try it, we would be more than happy to do that with you. But for us, and I even talked to Beth and Fred about this, you have Seesaw. You have so many great tools with Seesaw. You shouldn't just use Jamboard just for the sake of using Jamboard. Like I said, I would definitely use it for the whiteboard feature, but the other stuff, I'm not really sure I would, to be honest. So All right, we can keep moving.
All right, so we're on slide 3 right now.
And this shows you an example of what it would look like. I think of, our primary grades when they do things like calendar and they talk about the weather. So this is where you have your text boxes and you can talk about, what kind of weather it is today, what the temperature is. You can make it interactive, or you can just use it as, a way to call on kids and ask them what would you pick, and then you can drag it yourself. The next slide, slide 4, is very similar. It's just a calendar. We get a lot of our examples off Twitter. We get a lot of our templates because they're educators that have been doing this since March, have been using these tools a lot. So at the end, we're going to show you a whole template folder that has all of this stuff. So don't feel like you have to recreate anything. Everything we show you today, we have examples in that folder.
Yeah, and keep in mind, this actual presentation itself, you can just make a copy of this whole presentation just like you would with a Google Doc. It's not, we know that, time is precious and you guys have 1,000 things on your plate. This is stuff that feel free to just go ahead and steal it, remix it, make it however you want to make it. But all the templates we're going to share with you, everything you're looking at today, you can just make a copy of it and then customize it if you want, or if you like it as it is, you can just use that as well. All right, so we're going to move to slide number 5 right now. So on slide number 5, if a couple people want to go into this slide, and if you go to the select tool, you can grab any of our nickels and pennies and dimes and quarters. And as the teacher, I'm going to go into the text box and let's make the number of the day. Oh, how about 20? And this would be something that, if I shared with my students, all I did was take a screenshot of this kind of math, this page here that has the number of the day, and students could use the pen tool, they could use the text box tool, they could use sticky notes, they could use the drag tool. And, I like that I'm seeing so many different ways of people
I know,
doing
I love that everybody's jumping in. I love it.
Yep. So again, and really a lot of these tools are pretty basic tools. There's a pen tool, there's a sticky note, there's an image, there's shapes, there's text. But what that really does is it allows students to kind of decide how they want to show their understanding, and they get to do it together. So there is some power in that, especially if kids are remote, if they're quarantined, or if school would go red. This at least gives the opportunities for students. You could put them in small groups and have a handful of kids working on one page together, and that collaboration piece is probably the thing that we're missing the most when we wind up going remote. Jumping ahead to slide 6, and I know we're going quick and you want to keep playing, but we'll have you keep playing on all these other slides as well. Slide 6 is pretty much the same thing. It's just a screenshot of a worksheet, but as you can see
probably
here,
more advanced. I don't even know that I would know the answers to some of these.
the answer is always 7.
But that's all we did. That's all they did. They took a screenshot of a worksheet and then put it in Jamboard. Now, remember, you could even take this and make a copy 20 times and have students collaborate on it, and work together to answer again. And you could even use breakouts. We'll get to breakouts later, but there's plenty, there's collaboration opportunities here for sure.
Yep. All right, I'm going to jump ahead to slide 7, just to kind of demonstrate real quick what a labeling activity would look like. I just had a great conversation with a middle school teacher who said he's like, man, I used to make so many packets for labeling and diagramming. He's like, Jamboard for science is definitely the way to go for me now, because even something like this is label the cell structure. It can be label anything, and really the labeling tools, if kids want to use the pen, if they want to use the sticky note, if they want to use the text, whatever they want to use, but essentially they can go in and they can start labeling whatever you want them to label. Peter just asked a question I see in the chat. Can you lock the background so students are unable to move? That's a really, really good question. The hack that we were using for that was actually taking a text box, and it's a funny hack, but you can see on my screen right here, if I take this text box and I drag it over the entire cell.
Think of like the overlay, like the plastic that we used to, write on. Think of it that way, but they just released a new update. And if you go to set background, you can add an image that way. And we were talking about it, like using a Google slide and making your background and then downloading it as a JPEG and then throwing it in there. That would, uploading it, that would keep it so it wouldn't move around.
We literally said yesterday, I wish Jamboard would add a background where you can do the image. And we looked it up and we saw from Google that it was an update. So we just didn't know it would be out today, but it looks like that's going to be kind of the future of how you're going to do that. And again, I think Jamboard's so fresh right now that Google is going to continually improve it as people give feedback and say, hey, I wish there was a feature to not have the background get moved. Excellent mitochondria there.
Think about Google Classroom when it's early phases. Think about even Google Meet in the spring. They continue to add better things. So we can only foresee that they're going to do a lot of better, Jamboard's going to keep getting better.
So this next slide here is just another example of labeling, but it can be a little more intense here because you've got, drawing 3 major organs, drawing organs showing how they function, describing it. Again, we could take images. If you're a really great artist, you can use that pen tool, and you can use sticky notes to label and diagram, as you can see down here. But I'm just looking at time and realizing we're gonna keep moving.
Well,
so
I just do want to talk quick that this is an idea an example we got off of Twitter, and what they did was a museum walk. So once every kid did this diagram, you can see in the picture how they went to each of the slides to see how each of the students did, to kind of have like a digital museum walk.
Yep. All right, Shelley, jump in slide number 9.
All right. So this is an example of, just again, it's a worksheet on labeling, maps. So you can take a picture of a map and then have kids color in certain areas or add information. They can, label things. So great for social studies for sure.
I don't know if that's Bulgaria. All right, next one.
This is an example of a timeline. You can have, the kids can work collaboratively and put them in order. They can create their own timeline. They can create a timeline like this and then have another student have to sort through and put things in order. So using, the sticky notes, using images, all we did was draw a line there. So that's another easy on the fly kind of activity that you can do with your kids, or even a little project.
Yeah, and keep in mind timelines. I mean, you can use timelines in so many different subject areas. Whether
do it for books too, yeah.
Yep. So we threw in images and sticky notes and said put them in order. I mean, you could just leave it blank and just tell the kids create a timeline, and they can kind of go to town and just say, hey, the start of this is Great Depression. The end of it, maybe let's say, is 1941. Used images from the Google search in the image option there. But yeah, you can do it a lot of different ways.
This is just an example of a digital poster, and just the same way you could use all of the tools for kids to show information, show what they've learned, and then do, another museum walk if you wanted to. Again, you could even throw this in Google Classroom or Seesaw, and it could be an individual activity. It doesn't necessarily have to be collaborative, but it could be.
Yeah, and it could be exit ticket at the end of the period too. Last 5 minutes. All right, we studied Akhenaten this period. You and a partner go ahead and make a digital poster. That's all you have to say, and the kids can kind of go to town and add all the information they want. Jumping ahead to slide number 12, just looking at some text annotation, just a screenshot of Gym Class Heroes lyrics, but giving the students the option to highlight or circle similes, metaphor, hyperbole, personification. You could have multiple students working on this at once. Think about using this for any text that you want. It's a great text annotation tool. Another one here, we just have, this is a great place for graphic organizers. I might have 20 slides that are just blank Frayer model vocab pieces like this. I just added text box. We could add whatever words we want, and then students could go through and add their definitions, examples. And by the end of it, we could have all the students make a copy of this, so they could have 20 words with graphic organizers for each word, or you might assign this individually for students and they could kind of just keep this in their own spot. It's very similar to Google Slides in this case, but again, kids can work together. It's just a text tool.
And for those of you that use Google Draw, you can easily, there's tons of templates even available on the internet where you can just download them and then add them to your Jamboard. We had a teacher at the high school that was using Google Draw in Google Classroom. And I said, why don't you take that graphic organizer that you created and let's put it in Jamboard? And she wasn't familiar with Jamboard. That was the week they were read, and she was able to do it on the fly with the kids, and she absolutely loved it.
Yep. This is one too, just book project. Here's a book. Go ahead and kind of just brain map that out. Settings, main character, conflict, style. You can do this with any topic. It's similar to the digital poster. Slide 15, this is one that we used for foreign languages, using just kind of showing off the shape tool here, just, circle, squares, triangle, a couple shapes. But what you can do is you can take those shapes and you can copy and paste them as many times as you want for your students, and then say, okay, use all the shapes to create a character and then label that character. So I put these here. Here's my face. Let's give him a mouth. There it is. And I could say, look, there's the ojos. I said ojos, and there's his cabeza, and you can label it like that. But again, it's one of those things that it's really an on-the-fly type of tool where it's like, all right, quick check for understanding. We just covered, Spanish body language parts there. Just take the shape tools. You have 2 minutes, everybody, to create something and show what you know. And then slide 16 here, this is a GIF that we put in of another Jamboard, but we had a teacher at the high school that really wanted to use the station rotation model, but because of all the parameters we have with COVID and pandemic stuff, you know, we can't really have students moving around too much. So they were able to rotate to different stations for this literary criticism they were doing by essentially being in a group with maybe 4 other students and then working through each slide in the Jamboard to rotate for that station so they could talk about, you know, feminist perspective or Marxist perspective or something like that. So using the station rotation model inside Jamboard and then just assigning that jam to a few students in a group. Another good way to do it. All right, Shelley, take us home. We've got like...
All right, I moved around a slide, my favorite slide.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so go to the next one.
Perfect.
So sometimes you want check-ins with your kids, and one of the things we found on Twitter that are hysterical is on the scale of how do you feel. So there's Baby Yodas, there's Celine Dion's, there's all these funny ones, there's cats, there's dogs. We have a whole folder in our Jamboard template. One of the things we learned is sometimes there's inappropriate pictures, like there was a cat drinking tequila. Oh, we got one there too. There was a cat drinking tequila in one of the squares, which, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd probably pick that square half the time, but you probably don't want your kids to have that as a choice. So using it as a daily check-in about how you're feeling today, kind of like we did with the I Spy, would be a good way to get things, you know, started in a session for the day.
Yep.
So,
and you can say, you know, in our other session, we just said, go ahead and sign off on any feeling.
You could put your,
yep, you could put sticky notes, takes 30 seconds. Okay.
We're at 3:15 and we have to do breakout rooms. So let me talk about the other one really fast. Before Thanksgiving, we were able to team teach with some 5th grade teachers. And we did some fun stuff where we worked in groups and we worked in breakout rooms. And we had activities where the kids we had Pictionary with Thanksgiving words and with Thanksgiving food. We did a whole thing of what are you thankful for? And then we had make your own turkey. For those of you that love Canva, the website Canva, there's a Canva EDU element. We're going to send you info at either today or tomorrow morning that you can sign on, and then you have access to all this free clip art. So what I did was I had all this clip art that I was able to download with a clear background, and I was able to add all of it and then make copies for kids to make their own turkeys. We'll send you, this has tons of information. It has the manipulatives in it. It has on a scale, and it has a ton of Jamboards that are available for you. Remember, we know this is fast and furious, but you're not on your own on this. We're trying to make life easier for you. We know things are not easy right now, and we're here to help you any way we can. The last thing we want to do is show you the breakout feature. So we're going to get you into breakout rooms.
So at this point, if you want to close your Jamboard, but make sure your Google Meet is still up, and we're going to make sure we get you out of here. So this is going to be the fastest breakout room ever. But just so you can see breakout rooms in the upper right-hand corner on my screen, I'm going to the Activities tab, and I'm going to breakout rooms. And this is one of the greatest tools ever for Google Meet because it's so easy to do. I've got everybody in this call on my list right here, and all I have to do is click on this button that says set up breakout rooms, and it's going to automatically randomly put people in rooms. I can hit shuffle to randomize that even more. I can increase the amount of rooms so that I have smaller groups. So I'm going to stick to 10 rooms right now. So there should be around 3-ish people per group. I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute, but I'm really going to bring you back in about maybe 30 seconds, just so you can see what it looks like. And I'm going to ask that you go to your breakout rooms and discuss how you might use this in your class. And then I'm going to bring you back just so you can see how that looks. Okay, here we go. I just have to hit open rooms. There it goes. And you should get a little pop-up saying, hey, join a room. And Joanna, I'm going to put you in a room because you didn't get put in a room. There you go. Oh, my. Oh, good. We're still recording while I'm coughing like crazy. And close rooms. All right, and people are slowly returning from breakout, the fastest breakout room session in the history of breakout rooms. And that's kind of what your students are going to see as well. You know, you'll get a little warning when time's running out. As a moderator, I can jump into different rooms and see how people are doing. But honestly, at the secondary, the biggest thing that we've seen, especially when we went red and everybody was 100% virtual, when we're in a large group like this, kids are very, very quiet and absent. And there's something that happens when you put them in a breakout room with 2 or 3 people where immediately it's like, oh, good. Okay, now there's just a couple of us, blah, 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 which is what you want. You want your students to be able to interact.
We are so grateful that you joined us today. We only have 2 minutes. We'll send you a bunch of resources, and know that if you wanted us to team teach with you, or if you wanted to put in a tech request to dig in this further, you know, I feel like this is a tool that's going to be great for the year 2021 even. So, you know, the more we learn, the more we'll share with you. And, you know, we look forward to working with you and making this the best situation possible. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks
Thanks
guys.
for coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Pete's hanging out with us.
He's hanging out. He's a good guy.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know.
Get out of here, Pete. You had a good day. Go home and relax. He's not going. There he goes. I'm going to stop recording.